I want to talk this morning about touching Jesus, reaching Jesus. The second story we're also familiar with, and this story is found in 3 of the Gospels. It's found in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, but we're going to look at the story in Luke, and this is the story of the blind beggar who is seated by the road. And we're going to read just the first part of it. This is from Luke 18. We'll read verses 35 through 38. Let me tell you something. When you read it in one place, don't stop there, because you know what? If you will also read it in Matthew and Mark, you will find out there was more than one beggar. It wasn't just one who was blind by the road. And if you read one of the other ones, you'll find out that his name was Bartimaeus. What a name. Have any of you thought of naming your children? Stanley, have you thought about Bartimaeus? Good. I don't know if that's because theirs is going to be a girl or Bartimaeus is not on their list. It means son of Timaeus. That's what it means, Bartimaeus. Bartimaeus. So we don't know what his first name was. All we know is it's son of Timaeus. And he's seated. As Jesus approached Jericho, a blind beggar was sitting beside the road. And when he heard the noise of a crowd going past, he asked what was happening. And they told him that Jesus the Nazarene was going by. So he began shouting, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." I really like this story a lot. And we only hear about this one, and you say, is there a discrepancy? Is there a problem with the Scriptures? I don't think so. I just think that in this particular incident, we're hearing about the one that was really noisy, the one that got attention because he was so loud. This story interests me and intrigues me. You know why? You say, well, this is just like all the other gospel stories. Not really. All the other stories of healing, because you know what? In almost all the other stories of healing, either Jesus sees a person or a situation and he goes to them and he heals them, or in other situations, friends or people bring someone who is sick to Jesus and they say, "Jesus, this person is sick. Would you heal him? This person is blind. Would you open his eyes and let him see?" Or as Jairus did, "My daughter's dying. Please come." That's the picture that we see. And we see a different picture here. A blind beggar is seated by the road as Jesus is passing, and they ignore him. They ignore him. Now, it was common for beggars to sit beside the road because that was where people passed. They didn't have the social aid that we have today, and they didn't have programs to help people who had disabilities or handicaps in some way. So if you were handicapped in some way, begging was pretty much your only option, especially if you were blind. There was nothing else that you could do. And so he's seated by the road begging along with another beggar. He hears the noise and he knows something unusual is happening. He doesn't yet know that it's Jesus, but he knows, wow, there's a larger crowd than usual today. And he gets noisier and he gets louder and the crowd grows. And I imagine Bartimaeus is thinking, whew, somebody important is coming. An important person is likely to give an offering to a beggar. In fact, if they're important, they're rich, maybe they'll give me, whoever it is, he'll give me a bigger offering. He'll give me a bigger alms instead of just a little bit. Maybe I'll get a lot from this important person who's passing by. That's all he knows. But then, in the midst of this, he asks very specifically, what's happening? And they told him that Jesus the Nazarene was going by. Oh, I love this story because that's all it takes. He has heard of Jesus before. He has heard of Jesus, and he knows the one who can help me, the one who can change my situation is passing by. Oh, many people will pass by and put a coin or two in my begging bowl. Many people will pass by and give me a piece of bread. But Jesus is passing by, and this is the one who can change my life, who can do more than give me a piece of bread, who can do more than give me a little coin that will feed me for a day. Jesus can change my life forever. forever. And Jesus still changes lives for forever today, for eternity today. That's who He was. That's who He is. That's who He will always be. And Bartimaeus hears and he starts to cry, "Oh, Jesus, Jesus, Son of David." You know what? He knew something that the crowd didn't know. He doesn't say, "Rabbi, Master, Teacher, come help me." He calls Him by His messianic name, Jesus, Son of David. That meant he knew this is the one that God has promised. This is the one who's coming. He knew what people who could see didn't see and didn't know. Blind as he was, he already knew something more than many of them knew. And he starts to call out to the one sent from heaven who would make a difference in his life. "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Have mercy on me. Jesus, Son of David." What do the people do as he begins to shout out? This is why I love this story. Here's this blind beggar. And for me, what I see in him, it's a little bit different maybe from the woman who had the hemorrhage, who was desperate and determined. In Bartimaeus, I see, I don't want to make things up, but for me, this is what I see. The heart that realizes, this is my moment. This is my chance. This is my opportunity. Now. And I think we see that in this story because he was blind. Here was Bartimaeus. He was going to be stuck outside Jericho all his life. He was never going to go anywhere else. He was never going to be anywhere else. There he was, seated outside the city. He wasn't going to get to Jesus in Jerusalem. He wasn't going to get to Jesus in Nazareth. Now, there's something else that we know in hindsight that Bartimaeus did not know, but in his spirit, he reached for Jesus anyhow. Do you know where Jesus was going as he passed by Bartimaeus and passed through Jericho? Jesus was on his way, his final journey. He was on his way to Jerusalem, where he would give himself up to sinful men for you and for me and for Bartimaeus and die on the cross. That's where Jesus was going. And he wasn't going to, Bartimaeus didn't know it, but he wasn't going to pass that way again. This was it. But obviously there was something in his heart. Now is my moment. Now is my opportunity. Now is my chance. And he starts crying out at the top of his voice, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." What do the people do? Be quiet. That's not really what they said. What did they really say? Shut up. That's what they really said. Now, this is the way it's put, but really what they were saying was, "Shut up. Shut up." Why do you think they did that? That's one of the reasons this story really intrigues me. Because in so many other situations, somebody who really needed Jesus' help, that was blind, people would help. They would bring, right? They would take the person. "Here, Jesus, this person is blind." And just like that, Jesus would heal them. He would pour mercy upon them. He would change their lives. And yet in this situation, the people are saying, "Shut up, shut up, shut up." And I think it was more than just, you know, sometimes we go to a movie theater and people are talking, or they've got their phone, and you politely say, "Shh," right? You do that? "Shh." Or you kind of, if you're really bold, you'll kind of, I'm quiet. You know? Have you ever done that, or just me? That's not what they did. They said, "Shut up. Shut up. Be quiet. Be quiet." Why? I don't know. But you know what maybe they just thought, maybe Jesus was teaching as he walked by and they wanted him to be quiet. Maybe that was it. Or maybe they were kind of selfish And they didn't want Jesus distracted to this blind beggar. After all, he's just a blind beggar. Me, I'm more important. And so they're walking along, and they wanted Jesus' attention for themselves. Maybe it was a selfish thing. Or maybe, and this is what I think, Bartimaeus was an annoying character. I do. I think that. He was a pest. He was bothersome. Maybe he wasn't very pleasant. He wasn't polite. And I don't want to make things up in the Bible, But for me, I look at that, and that's the impression I get, because they say, be quiet, and you know what he does? It's just like fuel on the fire, isn't it? He gets louder. He gets louder. And he only shouted louder, Son of David, have mercy on me. Son of David, have mercy on me. Shh, get quiet, be quiet, don't disturb him. It makes him cry out the louder. It makes him cry out the louder. And I think that's why the crowd responds to him in that way. I think he was annoying. I think he was disruptive. I really do. I think he was disruptive as the crowd was going by. He had to be, because a crowd is around him, they're walking by, and he is loud enough that he gets the attention of Jesus at some point. And I want us to look at this, and I want us to think about this blind beggar for a minute, because I don't know about you, but sometimes I look at Bible characters, and I think they're almost like cartoon characters to me. Do you know what I mean? They don't seem real, do they? Or maybe if you've been in Sunday school and your Sunday school teacher put up a picture of blind Bartimaeus, but beside the road, we think of them in that way. But he was real. He was flesh and blood. He was a person whose life was ruined, whose life was, I shouldn't say, in those days it would have been completely limited, completely controlled by this disability, by his blindness. Feel with me for a minute what Bartimaeus must have felt that morning, or whenever it was, we don't know. As he walks, as he's seated there, and he realizes it's Jesus passing by. And he begins to shout, Jesus, have mercy on me, Jesus, the only one who can help me. Now is my chance. And he's crying out, shut up. You mean his only chance is going to be stomped on by people? And he cries out the louder, oh, Jesus, Jesus, have mercy on me. It only fuels him to cry out the louder. My impression is that Jesus is already passing by. It really is. Because if you look in the Gospel of Mark, you'll find out something different. And not something different, you'll find out another detail in this story. Let's look at Mark 10, 49 and 50. When Jesus heard him, he stopped and said, tell him to come here. So they called the blind man. Cheer up, they said. Come on, he's calling you. When I read that phrase, cheer up, he's calling you, this is what I see, and this is what I feel in Bartimaeus. Jesus is walking by. And it's more than just, Jesus, help me. There is the desperation of someone who feels, I'm going to miss my chance. I'm going to miss my opportunity. He's walking by. He's not going to stop. He's not going to hear me. These people aren't going to let me reach Jesus. Because when it says, cheer up, to me that tells me he has been crying in desperation, but it's, oh no, Jesus, come back. No, stop. Don't keep going. And Jesus stops. Because brothers and sisters, Jesus always hears the cry of desperation. He always hears the cry of desperation. He never ignores it. He never ignores it. He always stops. He always stops. And Jesus calls him. And he comes to him and he says, cheer up, he's calling for you. I like this guy. Because the Mark gospel rendition tells us a little bit more. Because when he hears that Jesus is calling to him, tell him to come here, He knows. Has he received his answer yet? No. Does he know he's going to? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Why? He jumps up. In that crowd, he throws aside his cloak. He doesn't have a plan B. What if Jesus doesn't heal him? How's he going to find his cloak if he remains blind? I'm serious. You think, hey, here in Hong Kong, you leave something lying on the MTR. It's going to be there if you go back. Somebody's going to pick it up. You don't think somebody else would have picked up that coat and taken it? Bartimaeus threw it aside. Why? I don't need it anymore. That beggar's cloak, that beggar's clothing. Why? I'm going to reach Jesus. I'm going to touch Jesus. He didn't hedge his bets. He didn't have a plan B. He knew, this is my moment. This is my chance. This, and we're not going to get to the other two this morning, obviously. We will another time. This story speaks so strongly to me as I think of Bartimaeus grabbing this one chance. And if you read the end of the story, and you can read it on your own, of course Jesus heals him. Of course his blinded eyes are opened. But as I look at this story, this speaks to me, and it should speak to you this morning as well. Because there are so many of us, and so often, maybe we're not as desperate as Bartimaeus is, but there are times when, may I just put it in physical terms as we're reading here this morning, Jesus is passing by. And I know he's always present. I know he answers our calls. But brothers and sisters, there are special times when God is moving. There are special times when God is calling. And some opportunities don't return. And some things will not be the same again. We don't know what happens tomorrow. We don't know what happens when we walk out these doors. We don't know if our hearts will be as soft as they are now, or if we will feel the impulse to respond to Jesus as we do at that moment. And I believe for us, as there was for Bartimaeus, there are times in your life, in my life, when just like Bartimaeus, Jesus is passing by. And it's those times when instead of saying, I will at another time, I will when it's more convenient, I will when I feel like it, I will when I have more time, I will when other people aren't around, I will when other people won't see that I'm responding to Jesus or that I have an issue in my life, I'll do it then. But instead, we need to cry out as Bartimaeus did, oh Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Have mercy on me, because that is our moment, and that is our time. Years ago, in a church that Betty and I were in, there was a couple in the church. They were not full-time in the church, not regulars in the church, but they had been interested in the church. And they were coming to church. They were hearing the message. Neither one was Christian. And I don't remember if both of them were married, but one of them was married, and not to each other. And they had an improper relationship, as you can imagine. Things were going on in this relationship as they were close outside of their own marriages, and as things were going on. And one Sunday morning, in the message, the Holy Spirit was moving and touching hearts, and people were being drawn to the Lord. I was not there that Sunday. I was told about it. And as they stood there, the conviction of the Holy Spirit was so heavy on their hearts. This was many, many years ago, many years ago. And the conviction of the Lord was so heavy on their hearts. And one of them, as they felt the conviction of the Lord, he looked at her, and he wanted to go forward. He wanted to respond to Jesus. that was his moment. And she looked at him. She said no. She held him back, and she didn't want to go. And so he stayed. He didn't go forward and respond to the Lord. Maybe there was some sort of response in his heart, I don't know. But he didn't respond wholly to the Lord. And because the partner didn't want to. And that was his moment. That was his moment. The marriages that they were in were destroyed by that relationship that they didn't let Jesus take care of. They went a little bit further down. They married each other. And then that marriage relationship was destroyed as well. And they went further down the road. And I don't know about both of them. I think one of them has been married several more times since then. But they missed their moment. They missed the opportunity. And I'm not trying to scare you this morning. But what I am saying is there are times when Jesus is calling. There are special times when we can reach out to Jesus, when He's calling our hearts and He's touching our hearts and He wants us to respond. And we don't want to miss it. We don't want to miss it. Because Jesus, the Son of David, the one sent from God, is passing by. He's passing by. He's passing by this morning. He's passing by this morning. And Jesus is here this morning if you want to reach Him. If you're desperate and determined, like that woman was, you can reach Him this morning. You may have to push through a crowd. Jesus is passing by this morning, and if you will grab this opportunity in this moment, you will reach Him and you'll touch Him. I want us to listen to a song just as we close this morning, and then we're going to pray at the end of it. This is, the name of the song is I Hear the Lord Passing By. And it's taken from this story that we just talked about, blind Bartimaeus.
I hear the Lord passing by. This could be my day of visitation. Have mercy on me, Lord. Hear my cry of desperation. I hear the Lord passing by. My heart, my flesh yearn to be with you. Open my eyes to see your glory all the days of my life. I hear the Lord passing by. This could be my day of visitation. Have mercy on me, Lord. Hear my cry of desperation. I hear the Lord passing by. My heart, my flesh yearn to be with you. Open my eyes to see your glory all the days of my life. This is my one chance. This is my moment. Lord, I throw everything aside just to run blindly after you. This is my one chance. This is my moment. I want to Oh,